Oh, the quarry.
Yeah, the quarry.
Yeah, she's the quarry.
Yes.
The quarry.
Call this meeting of the Topsham Select Board to order. We'll call meeting in the Norway Russell meeting room. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ann Callahan,
Here,
Matt Nixon,
he's delayed, he's coming.
Ryan Holmes. Here. Reed Brilliant
Here.
and Roland Tuss.
Yeah. Next item is town manager's report.
Just a short one tonight. First one is some happy news to share, and it's that Ed Karen, our solid waste director, received a Distinguished Service Award from the Maine Resource Recovery Association this week. It's become like a trade association for people that work at the transfer stations. Ed helped organize it back in the 90s, and they helped coordinate recycling of different, finding markets for different uses. And Ed's had us as one of the leaders as far as you can bring your paint to our transfer station. That gets recycled, doesn't cost us any money. Things like light bulbs. We've got bins for different types of clothes. And it doesn't really matter if they're usable clothes because they become mats in your cars, the trunk liners and things. So there's a lot of different stuff. So Ed got an award for all the work he's done organizing that association over the years. Market baskets at the stage where they're putting concrete in, it's going to be in the area of the island. The concrete's going to be stamped to look like cobblestone, which is the nice part. The bad part is the concrete has to cure about 10 days before you can drive on it. So once they pour the concrete, it'll be about 10 days, they'll be using the detour again. But then once that's done, it should be about close to done with the detours. The license for the Brunswick Topsham Dam that's near the Frank J. Wood Bridge is up for renewal, and there's going to be some public meetings on Tuesday, May 7th. There's more information on our website, but there's one at 9 a.m. at the Brunswick Hotel over on Noble Street. And there's a 1 p.m. site visit that they're going to take us around and see what they're doing for, say, the fish passage and things. If you want to sign up for the site visit, you have to RSVP and have a hard hat and protective boots. But the 9 a.m. meeting's open to everyone, and that's probably someplace you could sign up for the site visit if you wanted. Myself and Planning Director Salvati are planning to go to that.
What hotel is that at?
The Brunswick Hotel on Noble Street. And you may have noticed we have our electronic sign is getting close to being operational. So the new electronic sign is underneath our Topsham sign, so we can advertise public meetings. That was one of the things that came up in the Charter Commission decided not to write a charter. But other than WCME, because that's always our best way to get things out to the public, we're gonna have this sign as well that'll advertise meetings. And next week, we should get power to it, and then we can get the programming, and it should be operational soon. And my final announcement for tonight is that absentee voting will be available beginning on May 13th, and applications to request an absentee ballot are available now.
All right. Any questions? Next item, board and committee reports. We have none. Public comment. Anything?
We have an attendee with a raised hand, so we may have a public comment.
Okay.
Looks like it. And DST I04, if you'd like to make a public comment, go ahead.
It was a
Would you like
mistake.
to make a public comment?
It was a mistake.
Okay, then we will.
Thank you. All right, correspondence. Did you receive anything? Adjustments to the agenda, we have none. Consent calendar. Item 1, approval of the minutes of the regular select board meeting held on April 18th, 2024. Do we have a motion? Need a second?
Second.
Oh.
Seconded, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, Second item on the consent calendar, approval to open the polls at 8 AM on June 11th, 2024 for the state primary and municipal election, NSAD 75 budget validation and Region 10 referendum. To include approval to open and process absentee ballots on June 7th from 9 AM to 2 PM at the municipal office if needed, and again at the polls on election day beginning at 9 AM and continuing throughout the day as needed, including at 8 PM. Approval to appoint Linda Dumont as the warden for the state primary election. Approval to extend the registrar's office hours on Thursday, June 6th until 7 PM. And finally, to appoint the following individuals to serve as election clerks for a 2-year term. We have, there's a list in the agenda package. There's a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moving second, all in favor? Okay, that's it. So we need a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn. Second?
Moving second, all in favor? We're adjourned. Sorry to keep you waiting.
He can't hear, that's why he moved this chair. His hearing aids aren't working.
Mr. Consent told me.
Move the other mic over. So you ready for your workshop?
Yes, this workshop is now open.
We're just gonna move the mic over so that it'll be louder for him,
Okay, for the owl, or for everybody.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Because he can increase the sound in the room. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Great. And we can pass it around if we need to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, you need to.
Okay.
I'll turn it on.
Okay.
Test 1, 2, test 1, 2,
Go closer.
test 1, 2, testing 1, 2, test. Can you hear better now?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so shall we begin?
You might need to bring the, let me bring the mic over closer.
I can just, take it out of there.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Can everyone hear okay now?
Yes.
Good. It's gonna feel odd, but that's all right. So thank you. First of all, thank you for holding this workshop. We've been working for about 3 years on implementing the comprehensive plan. 95% of what we're doing is on recode. And this is a really great time to hold the workshop because we have a draft that's now ready for the public, and you are the first, of course, to be, receiving it and hearing about it. Before I actually get into all that, I just want to mention one thing that's kind of extraneous, which is, although it's not really, there's a conference coming up early June, and our new planning director, I think, has sent out an email about it. It's called Build Maine. A few of us went up last year. It's gonna be in Skowhegan again. So it's a little bit of a drive, but it's a great opportunity to hear from other towns and what they're doing, but also other parts of the country. And the few of us who went up last year just had a great learning experience, and all I could think of was, I wish members of both the planning board and select board and other committees could take advantage of it, because if you're, working full-time, it's not easy. So just a little public service announcement on that. So I'm gonna give a little bit of context to what's gonna be said next, and then Pete Bono is gonna talk about form-based code. And there have been a lot of questions about that. Then I'll come back in for a couple of comments, and then Margaret Williams will be talking with us for a bit, and I'll close us out. This is for you, for your benefit. So if it's helpful to have questions along the way, please interrupt us. it will work well that way. We've sort of planned remarks that will be about 30 minutes, but, however that goes, it's about making it useful to answer your questions, so you don't have to write them all down, just jump in. So, it all starts with the comprehensive plan. I know some of you have probably looked at it very thoroughly. Others may not have so much. Couple of us on the implementation committee, were part of the update process, as was Matt Nixon. I don't know how people feel about this plan, but it's pretty inspiring to me. Every time I look at it and start flipping through it, I think about, one of the things about it was that we had an enormous number of people in town who took part in shaping it. We know of at least 600 people who came out to actually give their opinion. And the process was guided by a couple of consultants who were really adept at getting the public out and engaging people. A huge number of photographs, maps, people were, encouraged to say, what do you like? What do you not like? And all of that was put together, and public process along the way, just as we have with the implementation. And here's the plan we have. 9 big ideas. Why did Recode come out of this? Out of the 9 big ideas, we picked 2 consultants and their approach, and I think you've all probably had a chance to see the recorded video, the slide presentation with Leslie Oberholzer's remarks. And she outlines 5 of the big ideas as central to Recode and how Recode addresses those. I see it as 7 of the 9 big ideas. So we've got streets for people. We've got foster social connection, support the knowledge economy, be deliberate about growth. That is a big one. And housing diversity. When I look at all of them, I see access to nature and open spaces as another really important big idea. I think when you step back from the comprehensive plan, the biggest takeaway that what people wanted is, let's preserve the things that people love about Topsham. And let's have some strong guidance in other areas. There's one particular quote in the plan that I really love. And it says, there's no names on it, so nobody's implicated. Topsham has done bold things in the past. Mill redevelopment, mall development, Highlands. We should continue to do more bold things and keep trying to shape town. So one of the things that we wanted to take away here is this is a plan that we have an opportunity to do some shaping. So that's really a hand. Go for it.
My question is, I have the list of 5 I brought with me, and then you added access to nature and open spaces.
Yep.
But you said there were 7?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
A more sustainable future. It's not just about, it's about the climate action plan, but it's also about keeping open spaces and nature so that we have habitat. Without contiguous habitat, species are threatened. And I think there's a goal in there. We're all gonna have a more sustainable future if we have planning that allows for keeping open space and nature. So thank you for number 7. So the real thing was where to start on this. And, when 7 of the 9 big ideas actually include items around reviewing the zoning code to see what needs to be done. There were lots of recommendations. In the plan, there are 4 different catalyst sites. We talked about, should we pick 1? Should we pick 2? Should we pick 4? And what we learned, guided by staff, was that there were a lot of, lots of code changes, little code changes had been done over the years. But it was really time for kind of an overhaul, a review of the whole code. The code enforcement officer had developed several pages of items that needed to be addressed. Some of them were small. There were some things that were unclear, some things that were contradictory, some things that were not addressed. So what we did was, we thought, let's look at the whole code and the area where people are looking for something really different, which is to have a walkable town center. We're not talking about an actual town center. We'll show you the map. But an area, and that addresses the social connection. If you have mixed use zoning and mixed use buildings, people have reason to come out of their buildings and shop and mingle. And it's the natural running into each other and those little conversations that, little did we know until the research starts showing how important those are to our well-being. So we decided to do a big project. It's a really big project. And we hope that, what you take away tonight is kind of the invitation that Leslie Oberholzer gave with her video, which is that it's an invitation to look more deeply at the code itself, especially the town center growth area code. So, yeah, I don't think I need to say too much more about that. I can show you the map that might help to ground us a little bit. Let me do this and find it. There it is. So this, and I know this is not the first time you're seeing this. Although what you're actually looking at is, this is not the latest map. I am sorry about that.
There are 7 areas, is that correct? The upper village, middle village, lower village. and so-
They're lower, middle, upper village. There's also the commercial mixed use zone, which is the Topsham Fair Mall area. And there's also a mixed transitional zone, which is the area is shown here in dark blue. And over on the other, let's see if I can see where my cursor is. That is basically Union Park Drive and that area is the other part of mixed transitional. We realize that both of those areas are transitional between sort of a primarily residential or 2 different types of zones. So it made sense to us, guided by staff and the consultants, to have those 2 zones not be named for geographical areas so much as the kinds of use that is currently there and also could be encouraged there. And then the other one is the mixed residential, which is in the area of, let me scroll up, what people know as the annex. And then what people know as the Crooker site here is the master plan development zone. So those are the areas, and the last section of actually creating the mixed transitional zones was really quite recent. So it's been a process of our looking again, looking more carefully, and then, this is where we are now. And we've had a lot of feedback. You're gonna be hearing about that from Margaret. But I think now let's turn to Pete to talk about form-based code. And I will get rid of this. And
Thank you, Susan. While she's getting set up, just want to let you know, I'm really excited about form-based code. Took me quite a while to get my head around it. But once I did and saw the results of it, I'm excited. And my purpose in talking to you this evening is hopefully to get you excited about it too. So I'd like to begin with a little bit of history of form-based code. I do have what are the benefits of form-based code? And I do have several examples, 3 of which are local examples of the form-based code. So I think a lot of visuals here that will soon be popping up on the screen. So Susan just showed you the proposed town center growth area. And that area is going to be using, we're planning to use both form-based code and traditional code or Euclidean code, with the preponderance being the form-based code. Let's first look at Euclidean code or the traditional code. Since 1926, there was a landmark Supreme Court case in the village of Euclid, Ohio. That's how it gets its name, Euclidean. Euclid, Ohio versus Amber Realty Company. U.S. municipalities have had the right to zone by dividing land uses by type: residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, etc. So this is the primary focus of Euclidean code, is the land, how is the land use, and separating those into different categories. Now, we still have those categories in form-based code. That's why we're really using a hybrid of the two in our town center. The purpose of Euclidean code, which has almost been in effect now for 100 years, was to separate industrial from residential land uses to protect against pollution risks like smoke producing and water polluting industries. So that was the primary purpose of it. The Euclidean code was planned for the automobile first, without considering how buildings were oriented to the street or how pedestrians would use them. This encouraged, unfortunately, excessive land consumption, unattractive urban and suburban sprawl, and negative environmental and social effects. Let's look at form-based code. Form-based code has been around for almost 50 years. It emerged at the end of the 20th century in the 80s as an alternative to the Euclidean code. Instead of focusing on land use, form-based code focuses on the physical form and characteristics of buildings and their orientation to the street, hence the name form, building form. Other form-based considerations include building size, density features, building materials, and importantly, strategic building placement to ensure that they're compatible with the layout of existing building patterns and pedestrian use, including the surrounding streets, blocks, sidewalks, parking areas, trees, landscaping, and the green open spaces for public use that Susan mentioned came up in the comp plan. The goal of, the goal of form-based code is to improve the physical character of a community by integrating new development with the existing environment to enhance local architecture, pedestrian use, social interaction, environmental elements, and the overall beautification that improves the public realm we all have. A lot of community good is being done here, which ultimately improves the quality of life. So that's a quite an undertaking. Now I want to show you some examples. We'll get into some, I've got 3 photos, here we are. We've got the first 2 up, which is fine. So I'm going to show you on these photos a transition from Euclidean code to form-based code design. This was a plan designed in Hercules, California, near their city hall, about 25 miles northeast of San Francisco. So let's take a look at the top photo. If you can see that, the top photo shows the 100%, what I consider the 100% Euclidean code design where automobiles dominate. You've got the highway nearby, you've got wide multi-lane streets and a Shell gas station. And this commercial zone is surprisingly right around the corner from their city hall.
It's being very touchy, I apologize.
That's fine.
That's okay.
Okay.
Leave it right there.
Yeah, the second photo, or the middle photo, you'll see is the same area that we're looking at as the top photo, except we have some enhancements. It shows what I call the first phase of form-based code. In the background, mixed-use buildings, 3 and 4 stories, have been added to the sidewalks for both businesses and residents to use, with street front entrances that are quite pleasant. So this is a lot different than that first photograph with those enhancements. And obviously, it opens up where you have, as Susan mentioned, where you have people living here and shopping and going to work here, all in one location, which the form-based code is designed to do. Okay, is that the bottom photo?
That's the bottom. photo.
Okay, that's good. Let's take a look at the bottom photo if you can see this. So the bottom photo shows the second and the final phase of the form-based code. The gas station is not there, you don't see it. It's been replaced with more mixed-use buildings, which encourages pedestrian shopping right around the corner from City Hall. There's a sign that says City Hall, you can't read it, but there's a sign that says City Hall there. And there's a Shell sign that points towards the relocated gas station off of this main street. Trees and shrubs have been added, and finishing off this form-based design transition. So this is the full transition to 100% form-based code with all the factors that Susan discussed, the walkability, the open spaces, and the socialization where people can talk and talk to one another as far as in and out with the shopping, the living arrangements, the working, all just around the corner from City Hall. And of course, the wide streets are still there because the automobile still came. But hope this transition helps a little bit. And of course, which photo would you prefer to be in? A rhetorical question. Let's look at the benefits. I have some more examples of form-based code, but let's stop and look at the benefits of form-based code versus Euclidean code. So form-based code encourages a mix of land uses, as I mentioned, creating more walkable neighborhoods that include residential buildings, businesses, green open spaces, sidewalks, interconnected walkable trails, allowing residents to leave their car at home or at least not use the car as much when you're combining errands. Form-based code revitalizes urban neighborhoods where a developer has more leeway to build a unique residential project in a desirable location based on the number of units, building height, and design. Form-based code helps local businesses thrive by not limiting commercial businesses to specific zones. It allows local business owners to set up shops throughout the municipality, in this case, the town center, sometimes where business owners can live in an apartment above their business. So that certainly combines work with where people live. Form-based code provides developers with more flexibility as to where they can build, what they can renovate, and more, resulting in more aesthetically diverse buildings that give communities a more unique appeal. Form-based code promotes a mix of housing types and more affordable housing by allowing new construction and residential renovations to occur throughout town center growth area instead of being concentrated in a specific area or areas. Form-based code increases resident satisfaction because diversity of space creates better housing options for different generations, as well as improved walkability, health, and overall quality of life. It also allows for better integration with existing public utilities, including enhanced landscaping, outdoor seating, and public spaces. Form-based code provides economic viability Money's a big factor here, because more areas can serve more than one purpose under this type of zoning, allowing for increased revenue sources for the developer and the community. And form-based code, I believe, also increases property values, and of course, the related real estate taxes that come to the community. Form-based code provides zoning information that's easier to use than the traditional Euclidean code, because it's shorter, more concise, and a lot of illustrations versus text. But most important of all, the final benefit of form-based code is that it implements 7 of the Topsham's 2019 comp plan's 9 big ideas that Susan alluded to earlier. And this focuses on what the community really wants. And I'm just going to go through them real quick again, the 7 of them. Streets for the people with safe walkability and bicycle riding. Local and regional mobility with interconnecting sidewalks and walkable trails. Access to nature and open spaces via the same sidewalks and walkable trails. Foster social connection by encouraging social gathering places. Be deliberate about growth by incentivizing new development where there is existing infrastructure, as in our proposed town center. Housing diversity for more affordable housing. And finally, a more sustainable future with fewer vehicle miles traveled, the preservation of land otherwise consumed by sprawl, as I mentioned earlier. Most importantly, the bottom line here is that by not using form-based code would mean ignoring most of Topsham's comp plan and not doing most of what our residents want from their local government as built into the comprehensive plan that had input from over 600 of our residents. Now let's look at some examples of form-based code, if we can pull up the next 2 photos. Yeah, right there, that's good. This is the first photo. This is downtown Brunswick, walkable downtown Brunswick. This really exemplifies the form-based code design. It has quaint buildings of different facades, roof lines in similar scale, building entrances that front on Main Street right up to the wide brick sidewalks, enhanced with trees, streetlights, and outdoor seating. And you'll notice, and probably you've experienced being downtown, that there's also angled parking on Main Street. This makes parking convenient, but it also slows down traffic for safer pedestrian crosswalks, as do the speed bumps that are also on Main Street. So we're going to go to the second photo now, which shows, very good, which shows the large green space on Main Street in downtown Brunswick. And there's public benches, a bandstand for concerts and other social events, and nearby food truck. This photo I took, because this is the lighting of the Christmas tree, which certainly fosters a social connection to the community, one of the comp plan's big ideas. So as you can see, using form-based design, or really the result of form-based design, downtown Brunswick has a unique character, a very joyful sense of place, and really is the heart of the community for social gathering. Kind of exciting what the end result of form-based code is. Let's take a look at another closer example of form-based code design, which you're in right now. That's the Topsham's municipal complex, which is really, I call it a landscape mini campus. We have the 2 dominant brick buildings, the municipal offices and the public safety building. And they're a short walk from each other along a landscaped brick walkway, which I know there's some flowers coming up right now along the walkway. And the parking for the municipal complex, as you know, is along the sides and rear of the building, not in the front. But by parking at the sides and the rear of the building, we're close to the side entrances. This leaves the building frontages facing Main Street with front entrances that are rarely used, but very attractive as people are looking at them, either walking by or driving by. And also in both of the buildings, the bricks that are used, to me, are reminiscent of those locally used in the 19th century commercial buildings, such as Fort Andros in Brunswick. It has that old-time feel, an historical feel, that Brunswick, that Topsham rather, not Brunswick, but Topsham has. So the next three photos pose some form-based code application questions for you. So the question is Rusty's Market and Gas Station in Topsham, which is on Middlesex Road, Route 24, is that an example of form-based code design? Why or why not? Let's look at it. So here we have a photo that I took of Rusty's from Route 24. This is in a residential neighborhood where the market building looks more like the surrounding homes. The building is enhanced by a residential gazebo on the front lawn. And per the residents' insistence, Rusty's closes at 10 p.m. every evening to keep the area quiet and glare-free at night. Let's take a look at the next photo. This is a Rusty's Market and Gas Station, but this is not in Topsham. This is the Rusty's Market and Gas Station entrance in Waterville. This is your typical gas station. And this is what the residents on Route 24 did not want. Those nearby homeowners, they did not want to look at this and put up with this kind of commotion, noise, and traffic all day and all night. So hats off to the residents of Topsham for that. I have one more photo which has to do with Rusty's. And, yeah,
If I can move up just a little bit.
Yeah.
over here. That is so.
okay, that's as good as I can explain it. It's an aerial view of Rusty's Market. Oh, you got it, okay, great. How do you do that?
Different touches. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Margaret's touch. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is an aerial view of Rusty showing the sign. Excuse me, the sign, the market and the gazebo in front as in the first photo. And the gas station's in the rear, where the upper left-hand corner there, that's the gas station and the gas pumps. That we can hardly see in the first photo from the front of Rusty's. And as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of this photo, there's two cars entering the market and the station. And then there's a blue line, which shows how cars exit after they either gas up or go into the market. And that blue line, which goes around back into Route 24, Middlesex Road, that shows how the cars exit, and it creates the entrance and the exit together, really create a smooth traffic flow, minimizing the congestion in this very pleasant residential area. So let's get back to our application question for you. Am I doing that? Okay.
So far, so good.
Okay, let's get back to the question then. Is Rusty's an example of form-based code design? Why or why not? Anybody wanna?
Yes,
Matt? Oh, yes.
it certainly is. It's designed to fit into a neighborhood, residential neighborhood, looks like a house, has a cupola on the top, it has a gazebo out front. The commercial uses are stuffed in the back. And while the flow, mine here looks awesome, that's not really how it functions.
It flows both ways. It goes in and out both ways.
But, yeah,
It does, but you know, I go there and I use this way because it seems to be more convenient.
it is, but when you've got people coming from the other way to
I'm
get out.
coming the other way and I
Oh,
go
okay.
the other way.
Oh,
Yes, I mean,
And then I
plus
go
it's
back
top.
home out the other way. So I go in and out the same side.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I got a lot more to learn about Topsham.
Aside from that though, yes, great setup.
Okay, anybody else? You agree with Matt? Yes. This is form-based code? Okay, I think the most important, point here is that going back to the comp plan and what the residents want out of our community, this addresses a lot of them. This is not your typical bus station, and, you know, as Matt pointed out, and this has won awards, and they had a sales target, for a year. They forecast before they open, they have a sales forecast for the first year. They met that forecast in 1 month. So not only does this meet the needs of our residents, but it's certainly meeting the needs of the business people, Rusty's, who own this.
I live by that area too, and I remember when that was being built and they were tearing the old Rusty's down. I also remember a lot of people that were against having a gas station in their little town. And because of the way they've done this, I think that it's garnered a lot of people to accept it and enjoy it. So kudos to this form base, because if it was a gas station that didn't look like that, I'm sure it would be met with a lot more resistance. But I think it garners the buy-in factor, and it's a great example of our town of what we're trying to do moving forward, because even those in opposition of some of the things and the growth that Topsham wants to do, I feel like after we start doing projects like this, they see it and they say, oh, okay, I like this. It's not that bad. And that is what we are as a town. It's just the ability to grow because we're growing, and to do it in such a way that even those that don't want that growth can look at it and say, that's good, that's tolerable, and it functions well.
Wow, I did not know that. That's tremendous input. Thank you for mentioning that. That's what it's all about, I believe.
Yeah, me too.
And you too.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ryan. Any other comments or questions? This one,
Just go back to diversity in housing. And you're talking to people about that relative to affordability and basically multi-resident buildings. Did anyone mention what an acceptable height would be for those buildings?
mention the height for the buildings.
Yeah, in terms of like, so right now, we certainly have a set height as far as the buildings. You know, was there a lot of opposition about saying, well, we need to go up 20 feet higher in order to make this economical?
What I would say is, you know, when you look at each of the zones in the map of the Topsham Center, we have a lot of different building types. And if it would be helpful to look at the slides, you know, we could look at those. Each zone has certain building types allowed. And those building types have a range of setbacks and height and roof options. And then there are also ways to have exceptions to that. So although there has been no desire expressed to have enormously tall buildings, there's a recognition that in some areas it might be appropriate. I think the big concern is that the new code encourage buildings that will respect and match, you know, the existing character of that neighborhood, whether it's the lower village, middle village, upper village. I know that there was a recent proposal that was considered by the planning board, and I think there were 3 or 4 workshops on that. And I think it probably opened people's eyes to the possibility of having a different type of building in the area that the proposed town center code is calling mixed transitional. So that, you know, I mean, what you hear a lot from developers is in order to have a project be affordable, they have to have a certain number of units. Form-based code doesn't look at units. It looks at, you know, and the other thing that's different is right now, our town center code has a lot of minimum lot size requirements in order to build anything. That is no longer there. It's about what you have a lot, what can you build there? There are building options. Look at what's appropriate in your zone, on your lot. And if there's a need for a variance, that can be sought within limits. So the code builds in flexibility, but it builds in, I think, guidelines for each part of town center to have a harmony to it. But I think occasionally you find an area where it's like, oh, we might actually have a 4-story building. You don't have too many of those, I don't think, any in Thompson at the moment, but in certain areas, might that be appropriate with a parking garage underground? Oh, my God. So, sometimes you think, well, that could actually work. So I don't know how that will all turn out. But I know that, I believe that that is on the warrant with some certain changes to allow for that, recognizing what the comprehensive plan calls for. Because the housing diversity is not just affordable housing. I think, Maine, like everywhere in the country, is having a housing crisis. But it calls for different kinds of housing. Different types of housing to meet different life stages. After you have an empty nest, you don't need a 4-bedroom house. You might need a condominium. There are different types of housing that could address the market need. And once that market need becomes addressed in a more effective way, perhaps housing costs will go down. Who knows? That's something I'm way beyond my pay grade. But I think that the issue of housing diversity it includes affordable housing, but it's beyond that as well. Does that address?
Yeah,
At least some of-
I'm just conscious of, minimizing footprint as much as possible nowadays, because it seems like we have these minimum lot sizes that measure in the past, after a while it becomes counterproductive.
Right.
So just building up, I suppose, how it makes sense in some areas.
Right, that's one of the things with looking at the map of Topsham Center growth area. It's an area that has infrastructure, water and sewer. And by encouraging, or at least allowing for some infill, Topsham's tax base will be stronger. That's one of the things that we don't have that kind of analysis of the town. But looking at the kinds of comparison, form-based code does end up leading to a stronger tax base over time. Hard to argue with the value of that. So shall we go back to our flow? And just a couple of more comments from me. Just to go back, Leslie Overholzer's slides and her narration started with the idea that, Recode is actually in 2 parts. The town center, which has the form-based code hybrid, is the part of it that we have focused on as the implementation committee. Planning department staff have worked closely with the planning board on all the rest of the code, which is now complete. They've gone through a lot of workshops and so that process is done. We actually have those 2 parts of the code knitted together. We have one document, pretty exciting. And there will be lots of workshops going forward with the planning board on the town center recode. So with that, let me pass the microphone to Margaret to talk about our process with the public.
Thank you. My contribution will be way smaller than Susan and Pete's amazing presentation so far. I just want to share about the ways that we've engaged with the public so far throughout this process. Obviously, all of our meetings have been open to the public. Our meetings are held hybrid on Zoom and in this room. We also have monthly workshops that are posted on the town website in relation to the schedule, when those are scheduled. We've delivered a few periodic updates to the select board in the past. And as our consultant, as Leslie has developed, well, as she had developed the first draft, that's around the time that we sent out our first article in the Crier in May 2022. And that was like the front page article. It had, a map, and that garnered, I think, a lot of good feedback, just to keep folks aware of this process that was happening. We've also hosted workshops with the planning board and with the select board. I think our workshop with the select board was last fall sometime. We try to stay in communication with other committees, in town. So we've got like the energy committee that we've worked with. Obviously you're working with the planning board, just to stay in communication with other committees and see how they're implementing the plan. In relation to the recode project, we initially held, when we had our first draft ready to share with stakeholders, we held an initial public workshop that was more like a public forum in this room, and we got a lot of very generalized feedback. And from there, we decided to host office hours with the consultants so that we could sit down with the stakeholders and really deep dive into some of their specific feedback and concerns that they had about the initial draft of the form-based code. So we've done 3 of those office hours, got lots of feedback. We also held an open house for property owners that would be impacted by form-based code recode, and then the consultants incorporated that feedback over those multiple feedback sessions, incorporated all that into a draft. And now this is the draft, the second draft that is now available with all the red lines incorporated. That's what's posted on the town website right now on our CPIC page. And yeah, now I think we're ready to bring it to the town meeting.
Right. I don't know if it's helpful to hear some of the examples of, like, there are, over 3 different office hour sessions. We had some, the kinds of feedback that we got led us to, the first thing was the master plan development was triggered at 4 acres. We upped that. The feedback we got was, don't require a master plan until you have a larger property, 6 acres. So that's changed. The other thing was people were looking at the master plan development code and thinking that what was required from their either 6 or 30 acres, thinking mostly of the Crooker site, which is the master plan development zone, thinking that that their plan had to be engineered. Not at all. So that was simply clarified. It has to be sketched out so that when it's not a carefully designed project, but when it comes to the planning department, that it's sketched out so that roads and different aspects of the plan development are identified. And so I think that was a huge relief to people when they realized that this is not an engineered site plan. It's more of a sketch. So, and there were other things about the positioning of gas pumps and drive-throughs. Initially, drive-throughs were much more restricted, but that there was a compromise on that. We realized we're in a somewhat different time now, and people are used to and wanting drive-throughs, but that it's important for them to be in the back. And the stakeholders we talked to seem to have no problem with that. The concern is safety, and not sort of a pileup. So those are some examples of the feedback that we've had, and there's a lot more. So just as a sort of what's ahead, we're coming up on town meeting, and what we'd like to do is use that opportunity as people are coming to town meeting and leaving town meeting to set up a display, so that people can sort of get planted in their minds that this project is happening, have some visuals about it, have a flyer with some information where if they want to know more, there's, information, where can they find that on the town website? So that's the first thing we'd like to do, and then have a public display during May and June, right here in Town Hall. There's a lot that needs to happen between this town meeting and the next town meeting in 2025, when we hope that this project will be on the warrant, both the town center recode and the larger update that the planning board at this point has completely worked through. And that all of that will become, over the course of the next year, familiar to the public and understood, very much like what Ryan just described with Rusty's, and the idea that we don't want a gas station, but oh, if it looks like this, maybe that's fine. And I think once people, people don't know what form-based code is, but once they realize the benefits of it and what it has, I mean, there are other places in Maine where it's being applied, several towns. So we hope that we're gonna be one of them. I'll leave it there rather than go through the detail of what's coming between now and next town meeting. I know it needs to go on the warrant sometime
I think it
in,
might be helpful, Susan, if you could do a little bit of detail, just so they get an idea what's been planned
What's
for public
coming up?
process.
okay? So we're hoping in June, this June, to have a community forum inviting the chairs and members of all of the town's committees. I mean, those are some pretty active folks who are very engaged in the town life. And to invite them and the public to a session very much like this, where we hope that they will have a look at the video ahead of time and then come with their questions and hear more about the project, just as you are tonight. With a chance to have, ask questions, hear more about it. So that's June. Then probably, who knows what will happen over the summer, not a lot, but I mean, I'm thinking what we've talked about is in September, having significant open houses where the consultants will be here to hear community feedback, have displays so that people can see what's being proposed, weigh in, very much like the update process, where, there'll be photographs and what do you think about this? Where the public, as opposed to stakeholders who use the code all the time, can actually weigh in. And this will be our new town center. We want people to get a sense of, that this is not going to be an immediate change, but over the coming years, the new code will help to bring about the vision that's described in the 2019 comprehensive plan. There'll be feedback opportunities probably in September and October. We're talking about planning board workshops on the town center hybrid form-based code recode. They have worked extensively on the cleanup and update, but they've had a workshop on it, but not now. The revisions are done. This is the public version of recode. They need to weigh in and really get into the weeds of what's being proposed. I don't know how many workshops that's going to require. Several, I think, based on the kinds of focus that's happened over the update cleanup process, also the process of going through a possible proposed project for the town center. It takes several workshops. So September, October for that. In the meantime, there'll be opportunities. There'll be a forum where people can give feedback online, ask questions online. So everybody who wants to ask a question, it will be a process of staff and committee. We went through exactly that in the update process, where we sat down and went through all of those. People will receive those responses. And we might have another informal, information session with office hours if needed. And then in November and December, final revisions based on that feedback from the public. November and December will be the final revisions, we hope. That will go into a public hearing in January 2025 toward formation of the warrant.
Or planning board would be in January, then it.
Planning board,
kicked on to
public
select
hearing,
board by
yep,
March.
and there's not a second public hearing, right? The public hearing happens in January and then April review of the warrant, is that how it?
It's the select board would set the warrant during the month of April.
April,
So the planning board would do the work on the
the front
proposed
end.
zoning code, and it would get passed on to the select board, which the select board could have its own hearings. if they
And all
wanted
of
to, but it
those,
doesn't have to.
just like this, all of those workshops are public. And so as people, I think as it comes into people's consciousness that this is happening and people are wanting to hear more, I mean, just like in the update process, people don't always have questions formed. But when you come to a workshop and you hear some people ask questions, new questions arise. And so I think those kinds of group sessions can be very helpful in showing people what is involved with this big project. So that's the timeline.
Been slotted to do this for 6 years, Susan. Congrats. It's a long time, a lot of dedication.
There is a member of the public who wants to speak and someone else made a comment through chat.
Okay,
And it's, so usually the workshop is,
Not open.
the committee and the board, but it's
Okay.
up to the chair to decide if he wants to entertain questions or comments.
We have one or two, you said?
Just two.
And the one maybe is the same person that had a hand earlier, so I'm not sure.
are there any texted questions?
There's a chat question. Well, it's more of a comment, but it says, wouldn't it have been better to open Rusty's on 199 back from the road on the side of Topsham Fairgrounds? And if you've been planning for more form-friendly development since 2019, why was Market Basket allowed to come in and put such a large building that could have been designed with more form-based functions? I think it probably means 196, which is limited access highway, so Rusty's couldn't have direct access to 196 for the first part of that.
And, until this code is going through the process we're going through and is on the warrant and approved at town meeting, it's not the code of the town. So, we don't have this new code. We have the code we have, and that's we have the code that the town has right now, and that is the code that Market Basket has come in on. We're guided, the planning department is working with developers as we speak. Some have their eye on the proposed changes and some may not, so, yeah.
Do you want to entertain questions from the audience?
And if any members of the committee want to pipe in, we'll pass this right over. You just gotta have a little.
So if you're someone watching online and you'd like to ask a question, if you raise your hand, and then we'll give you that opportunity by clicking it on your screen, and we'll give you the opportunity to do so. So we have one, Don Stein. I will. Don, go ahead, you can talk. Try again.
He's muted.
Done, unmute.
You can unmute him if you want.
You hear me now?
Now we can.
Yes.
I was just saying, and I appreciate your answer about the planning, but since 2019, but to let all that land that was really beautiful rural land go to a monster store that really is just competing with what's already there with no form or design in mind for the existing mall. I mean, a lot of malls, we had a place on Cape Cod years ago where if you had them all, it had to be consistent with the design of all the other homes and the style of Cape Cod housing. I mean, you look at what Brunswick has done. Why is this take? I'm curious to know, because why is this taken till 2024 to suddenly start thinking about basically what has been untrammeled, unrestricted, really ugly growth with no sense of community involved in any of it? I'm curious about that because I'm a newcomer here.
I don't feel like that's something that we can even respond to be honest. I mean, the comprehensive plan was approved at the May 2019 town meeting.
Okay.
You can't come sort of in within 6 months and slap down a new code, right? So we put out an RFP, a request for proposals. We got consultants. It took a while to hire them. We have been working on this for 3 years. And if you want to get online, the town website has the proposed town center code with all of the information that we've been sharing tonight. We invite you to get in there and look at it. It will shape things differently. But we don't have a new code now. It takes time to develop one. You want to do these things carefully. It's a process. And so we are where we are now. And now, in the beginning of the real public process, where people need to weigh in a very specific way about the proposed new code. That's the only way that people's feedback is going to be really useful.
Just one more question, please.
Sure.
How can is there any part of the plan involved in retrieving or repairing the damage that's already been done? With basically the kind of sprawl you have along 196, the Topsham Fair Mall itself, and is there any way to retrieve that and undo any of that damage? Is that part of the plan?
I guess the short answer is no, unless someplace comes back to be redeveloped. So if they come back to do something new, then they would have to comply with the new code for whatever they're doing that's new. But to do otherwise would end up being a taking if we were trying to, if someone's got something that's validly permitted and constructed and we're trying to just tell them they have to tear it down or do something different, we couldn't do that.
Okay, thank you. I'll shut up. Thank you.
But I think your point is, I mean, that's the feedback that produced this 2019 plan was concerned about exactly the things that you're voicing. That without some major changes, sprawl is going to eat up all of our natural areas. And we're doing our best to provide a new code, and we hope that people will engage with it. And see what you think. Let us know in specific ways. That's the most useful way.
So the one thing about Brunswick,
Yeah.
I'm gonna channel my inner Dave here. But Main Street was not planned for form-based code. I mean, that's sort of the way it just happened. And that's been around for a very long time. So we look at the rest of Brunswick, Cook's Corner, Old Bath Road, that is not form-based code. So like Main Street is sort of, it absolutely lines up with what we're trying to do here through form-based code, but it wasn't planned that way. It's just the way it was developed, way back.
It's the way New England
Correct.
towns developed, right? Before the mollification of America. And the automobile, where that was the emphasis. And the separation of uses was just have residential. People now, I think, have a new appreciation for the value of having a walkable community where you have reasons to walk to things. There are even more walkers, pedestrians and cyclists that I'm seeing in the Topsham Fair Mall. Now that's kind of a shock, but nice. Anybody else want to chime in to?
Well, you don't need to pass it.
Oh, yes, we do. Come on. Just be gentle with it.
One
one of the things that interested me in the form-based code from the beginning was the notion that it would lighten the workload of the planning board. As an architect, I spent a lot of time in front of planning boards and building committees, and I've always been amazed at the public service that planning board members provide to towns. I mean, they put in a lot of time to do very important work. And one of the things that came out of the stakeholder meeting was with the developers was that first it was a complaint that the form-based code was too specific. Why do we have to pay attention to all of these details, way too detailed? But when they realized that if they paid attention to those details and adhered to them and met the requirements, or we'll call them requirements, then the staff could do the bulk of the work. And it would relieve the planning board of a lot of the time-consuming work that they do that's a result of ambiguities in the existing code. So I think that's an important thing. The other thing, to your point, Matt, about downtown Brunswick versus Cook's Corner, there was a discussion at one of those meetings that we had, the business, what did we call it?
Office hours?
Office hours, not business hours. That there apparently is a committee, a redevelopment committee for Cook's Corner. And there was discussion that they're incorporating form-based code principles into that, which I thought was really interesting. So clearly this is beginning to generate some enthusiasm.
I have some thoughts. Number one, thank you for all the work you've done. This is a tremendous amount of work. And it's not done in a long time. It still has to happen. And forgive me for the length of this, but I want to cover some of the notes that I was writing down throughout all of it. I remember when I was a kid riding my four-wheeler where the Topsham Fair Mall is. It was just a big sand pit. And I remember when the Topsham Fair Mall went in, and it was a huge deal. And the land across from the Topsham Fair Mall was still a sand pit. You just went into the mall area, and now you drive down to the mall area and it's just everything there. It's a great aspect of the part of the town because it's right off the highway. However, when we look at our town, Topsham, we have everything here. We have everything from wildlife and preserves to malls. We have urban to rural areas, farmlands and malls everything's combined in our town. And I think it's important that we don't lose that sense of Topsham. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of through economic growth and development, because we want to preserve all of these things. And we talk about the green energies of what we're trying to achieve. We don't want to just build everything up and then all of a sudden we lose it all. With global warming and a lot of other factors that are taken into consideration today, I think it's important to recognize that. I also think we also have to recognize that we have a very eclectic town and a very diverse population. However, I think we all want the same thing. If you're young and you have a young family, you want sidewalks and safety for your children. If you're retired, you also want slower roads to drive on because fast traffic is not easy to navigate around. So we do want a lot of the same things. And I think if you drive down the old Navy base and you look at the development that's gone on there, you've got a gajillion new apartment complexes. They may be form-based code, but they're everywhere. You know, they all look nice. They have common areas, they have walkways there, but it's just, that's all they see. And from individuals that I've spoken with, I think that's the fear that Topsham will become something like that. And I don't think that's what we're trying to achieve here. But we do have to face the real challenges that Topsham has. And a few of the challenges that we have is that our population is increasing. our traffic flow is increasing, and arguably 196 is now the busiest road in the state of Maine. If it's not, it's the second busiest next to Forest Ave. A lot of that is attributed to the fact that during tourist season, the state of Maine's population doubles or triples depending on the weather. And everybody comes up Route 1. And how do you go up Route 1? You can either go from Brunswick or Topsham, but if you plug it into your GPS, it always takes you to Topsham. So in the summertime, that road is even busier. And whether we as individuals like it or not, Topsham is a destination place. And because of that traffic flow, there's also opportunity for economic growth. With that economic growth, we also have to address the housing crisis that comes into play, because we need people to work in some of these retail spaces, but they can't really afford houses in Topsham right now. Houses in Topsham are absurd in price. They've just gone through the roof. And I think that's another big challenge, is how do we pair this economic boom or growth that we're having with housing and affordability? And those are some of the biggest things. Part of all of the reason I'm saying all this is I would really like to encourage, for those that are listening, and people that may listen afterwards, to participate in this. The only way that we can do the best for our town, because we all do live here, is for everybody to participate, everybody to voice what their thoughts are. We may disagree on some things, we may not like what's happening, but there are ways to incorporate the development, the growth and everything so that we can all live here in a satisfactory way, because we all do love everything about Topsham. The conveniences that Topsham brings, in a 10-minute drive, you have everything you need. You don't need to go anywhere. But in the same 10-minute drive, you can go to the most beautiful and serene hiking spaces without even hearing the highway. That's a very unique quality to a town. And Topsham does sit central to the busiest cities in the state. We're 30 minutes north to Augusta, 30 minutes south to Portland, 30 minutes to Lewiston, 20 minutes or less to Bath. We are a central hub. And for that, there's a reason why the traffic is flowing the way it flows. Topsham also sits within 20 minutes of the highest paying jobs in the state of Maine. So we have a lot of people that live here. 90% of our population does not work in Topsham. They work outside of this. So that begs the question of the people that are working here in Topsham, where are they coming from? And how do we encourage that diversity in housing so that someone that might be working a minimum wage job can afford to work here? To also give way to the lifestyle that Topsham people are used to, right? Because we have grocery stores everywhere, and we have a new one coming in. We have everything that we need here, but in order for people to use those spaces, they need employees. Where do those employees live? How do we develop that? Are we working on building or creating businesses that have second-story apartments to mitigate the idea that we're gonna have these massive apartment complexes everywhere? Because I don't think that's something that we want. Ideally, the fears of what people think is happening is not necessarily what's going to happen. The fear of a gas station where Rusty's is placed has not been realized. The fear has been put out, if you will, because it's not as bad as what may have been thought about. And I think that's what this plan is really addressing. And I do appreciate the public comment earlier, or the question earlier, because we do need the other side. We need every perspective garnered on this case and in this situation, because as we listen to more people, we can truly understand what the depth of our town is and how to best develop it, because it's a very delicate balance. But the only way that we can do this and balance this correctly and efficiently is with public participation. You guys are giving an incredible amount of opportunity for public participation. I want everybody to just hear me say it again and again, participate. Even if you just stop in for 5 minutes, stop in for 10 minutes. It's a simple thing. You don't know what you don't know until you know it, right? And the only way you're going to know it is if you participate. Don't let the fears stop you. Just continue on and learn as much as you can about it, because like you were stating earlier, form-based code is a little bit more exciting to me after listening to you guys tonight, and I appreciate that. And I do think that we're on the right track. We do have our challenges, but we're on the right track.
Thank you. I would just want to encourage anybody who hasn't actually looked at the slideshow that's narrated. It's just less than 13 minutes. It has a lot of good information. It's a good entry point to then look at the actual code. The code itself can be a little overwhelming, but with that introduction, I think it makes it more accessible. So anyone, your encouragement to participate could start right there, right on the town website. There's a link. So.
Any other questions?
No other raised hands online.
Anything else on the board? All right, well, again, I want to express my appreciation for all the hard work you put into this so far, and, you know, looking forward to the next steps as you've outlined. I think there's a lot to be excited about, so again, thanks a lot. This is a great meeting, and can't wait to hear what's next.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.